My parents forced me to sleep in the loft while my sister claimed the spacious main bedroom, spreading word that I was troublesome. When they lost their home and pleaded to move in with me, I led them to their new quarters, the same loft with its familiar dripping ceiling. It's odd how memories strike at the strangest times. I was sifting through property ads in my office when my phone vibrated with an unknown caller. Typically, I ignore such calls, letting them slide to voicemail, but something nudged me to answer. Perhaps it was because I'd driven through my childhood neighborhood earlier during a property tour, or maybe it was just fate's peculiar timing. "Easton, darling, is that you?" My mother's voice hadn't shifted in the 8 years since we last spoke, that same cloying warmth that once veiled so much resentment. I leaned back in my chair, suddenly feeling like that 12-year-old boy again, standing at the base of the loft ladder with my cardboard boxes of possessions. "Yes, it's me," I answered, my tone steady, detached, the way I'd learned to handle demanding clients. Oh, thank heavens. Her relief was palpable, followed by what sounded like stifled sobs. We need your help, sweetheart. Your father and we've lost our home." I shut my eyes, recalling the day they'd relocated me to the loft. It was shortly after Harper, my sister, 2 years younger, had turned 10. Mom had summoned us to a family gathering in the living room, the one with the wide windows where she hosted her knitting circle. Dad sat in his worn armchair, while Harper lounged on the arm of Mom's seat, already sporting a smug grin. "Easton, dear," Mom had begun, using that same honeyed tone she just employed on the phone. "Now that Harper's growing up, she needs her own space to blossom into a young woman. We've decided she'll take the main bedroom and you'll move to the loft. It's actually roomier, you know? You should be thankful for the extra space." I stood there, scanning their faces. Dad's rigid glare, Mom's rehearsed smile, Harper's barely hidden delight. The main bedroom had been mine since we moved into the house when I was 6. It wasn't the largest room, that was my parents', but it had a private bathroom and a view of the garden I cherished. "But what about your room?" I'd asked, turning to my parents. "Why can't Harper have that one?" "Don't be difficult, Easton," Dad had barked. "This is what's best for everyone. Your sister needs proper quarters. The loft is perfectly adequate. I've already added some insulation and a window cooler." That marked the start of the story that shadowed my teenage years. Easton is being difficult. When neighbors noticed me climbing the loft ladder with my school bag, my parents would sigh dramatically. "Easton's going through a tough phase," they'd say. "He insisted on the loft. You know how teens are, craving independence. We're just trying to be supportive." The loft was never adequate. The window cooler functioned erratically, leaving me sweltering through summer nights and freezing in winter. The roof leaked in multiple places, and my carefully placed buckets became a rhythmic chorus during storms. The sloped ceiling meant I could only stand upright in the center, and the lone bulb dangling from a wire cast eerie shadows I took months to ignore. Meanwhile, Harper thrived in my former room. She received new furniture, a fresh coat of lavender paint, her favorite, and constant upgrades to suit her needs. When she wanted a dressing table, it appeared. When she needed a larger desk for schoolwork, one materialized. When she griped about the worn carpet, it was replaced promptly. I focused on what I could manage. I studied diligently, landed a part-time job at 16, and saved every cent. The loft became my drive. Each drip from the leaky roof fueled my resolve to succeed. I earned a partial scholarship to a solid college, worked through my studies, and graduated with a degree in property development. The irony wasn't lost on me. Now, at 35, I run a thriving real estate firm, live in a stunning home I purchased and restored myself, and have crafted a life where I control my environment. The last time I saw my family was at my grandmother's funeral 8 years ago. Harper tried to lecture me about moving on, while Mom dropped subtle remarks about my success. Despite it all. "The bank's foreclosing," Mom continued on the phone, her voice breaking. "We've tried everything, but we need a place to stay. Just for a while. Harper's apartment is too cramped and you have that big house all to yourself." I glanced around my office, at the plaques on the wall, the photos of homes I'd helped families buy or sell. Success had been my silent retaliation, but now life was offering something more tangible. "Actually," I said, surprised by my own calm, "I do have a space available. It's larger than a standard room. You should be thankful for the extra space." There was a pause. I wondered if she caught the echo of her own words from 23 years ago. "Oh, Easton, thank you," she gushed. "We knew we could rely on you. When can we—" "I'll send you the address," I interrupted. "Come by tomorrow at noon. I'll show you your room." I ended the call before she could reply, then sat for a moment picturing the loft in my own home, the one I'd planned to remodel this spring. It even had the same leaks as my childhood space, though I'd gotten a repair quote just last week. Funny how things align sometimes. I picked up my phone and canceled the repair service. Some leaks, I decided, were worth preserving, at least for now. They arrived at precisely 12:07 p.m. From my home office window, I watched Dad wrestle with parking their aging sedan, needing 3 tries to line it up in my driveway. Even from a distance, I could see time's toll. Mom's hair was fully gray, and Dad's once rigid stance had softened into a slight hunch. Harper's glossy sports car pulled in behind them. Of course she'd show up, the family peacemaker, always ready to gloss over tension with her blend of guilt and charm. I hadn't anticipated her, but I wasn't shocked either. I opened the door before they could knock. Mom stepped forward, arms open for an embrace I didn't reciprocate. She lowered them clumsily, her polished smile wavering. "Easton," she said, smoothing her jacket, a nervous tic I recalled from youth. "Your house is lovely." "Thanks," I replied, stepping aside. "Shoes by the door, please." Harper entered last, her high-end boots tapping the hardwood. "Nice place, big brother," she said, her voice laced with her usual mix of superiority and forced warmth. "Could use a feminine touch, though." I ignored her, guiding them through the living room. Mom's eyes lingered on the guest room door as we passed, but I continued toward the back hallway. Dad cleared his throat. "Son, we're grateful for this. We won't be a burden just until we're back on our feet." "It's temporary," Mom chimed in hastily. "We're already looking at rentals." The same phrases they'd used about the loft. Temporary, barely noticeable. Not so bad. I stopped at the loft ladder, reaching for the cord. "Your room's up here," I said, pulling the ladder down. The hinges groaned. I'd left them unoiled on purpose. The silence that followed was heavy. Harper broke it with a sharp laugh. "You're kidding, right? Mom and Dad can't stay in a loft. They're in their 60s. I turned to them. The loft's perfectly adequate. I've added insulation and a window cooler. Dad's own words, mirrored back after 23 years, his expression hardened with recognition. Now, Easton, Mom began, her voice slipping into that syrupy tone I knew too well. Don't be unreasonable. We're your parents. Unreasonable, I echoed softly. Like when I was unreasonable at 12, when you told Mrs. Carter I was acting out while I hauled my bed up a ladder like this? That was different, Dad snapped. You were a kid. We made choices for the family's good. And now I'm an adult, making choices for my home. The guest room's my office. The loft's what's available. Harper stepped closer, her cheeks red. This is absurd. You're clinging to old grudges. They lost their home, Easton. They need help, not some petty vendetta. You're right, Harper, I said, meeting her eyes. They need help, and I'm helping. The loft's larger than a standard room. They should be thankful for the extra space. Mom paled as I repeated her words. Dad's fists tightened, then loosened, a familiar sign of his restrained anger. I'll show you up, I said, climbing the ladder. The steps creaked, another deliberate flaw. The loft mirrored my childhood space. Slanted ceilings, a single bulb on a cord, a window cooler I'd chosen for its unreliability. Buckets sat under known leak points. This is outrageous, Harper declared behind me. Mom, Dad, you can't stay here. Come to my place. We'll sort something out. Your tiny apartment barely fits you, I noted. Besides, you always said the loft was fine when we were kids. What's different now? Mom surveyed the space, her hand at her mouth. Dad stood stiff, his jaw tight. They were absorbing it. The watermarks on the ceiling, the uneven floor, the stifling heat despite the faltering cooler. There's a bathroom down the hall, I said. You'll share it with visitors. The ladder's tricky at night, but you'll adjust. I did Easton. Mom's voice wavered. Please, we're your parents. Yes, you are. And this is what's available, just like the loft was for me. I headed down the ladder. I'll let you settle. Dinner's at 6 if you want to join. Or eat up here. I often did. Harper followed, grabbing my arm at the bottom. This is cruel, she hissed. They're not perfect, but they gave us a good life. They gave you a good life, I corrected. I got the loft. Now they get to see what that felt like. I eased her hand off. You can visit them any time. Maybe bring a dressing table or a new desk for their growing needs. I walked away, leaving Harper glaring and the sound of footsteps overhead. Through the ceiling, I heard the familiar creaks and groans I'd lived with for 6 years. The same noises that accompanied my study sessions, my silent tears, my dreams of escape. A loud thump, followed by Mom's muffled, "Sorry," brought a faint smile. They were already discovering the low ceiling. Some lessons are best learned through experience. I settled into my office, the one with the garden view, and opened my laptop. Above, the footsteps continued as my parents explored their new space. A light rain began outside, and I waited for them to find the first leak. Some things, it seems, come full circle. It's been 3 months since my parents moved into the loft. 3 months of them enduring what they put me through, with one key difference. They're in their 60s, not 12. The first month unfolded as I'd predicted. Mom tried to preserve her composure, acting like everything was normal when we crossed paths in the hall. Dad barely spoke, his pride bruised every time he ducked under the low beams. Harper visited often, bringing supplies and casting me reproachful looks. The second month brought surprises. A heat wave hit, and the old window cooler performed as expected, poorly. One sweltering Tuesday, I returned to find Dad tinkering with it, his shirt drenched. "Need a hand?" I asked from the ladder's top. He muttered, wrestling with the dials. "How'd you cope with this thing? It's like it's built to break." I didn't cope. "I sweated through my sheets every night that summer when I was 13, I said, watching him struggle. "Just like you are now." The next day, I overheard Mom on the phone with Harper, griping about a leak near their bed. "We shift the mattress every storm," she whispered, unaware how sound traveled through the vents, just as I'd once heard them discuss my troublesome phase. "Then leave," Harper snapped, her voice faint through the speaker. "This is ridiculous. He's punishing you." "Where would we go?" Mom's voice broke. "We can't afford anything after the bankruptcy." I smiled, recalling how they'd insisted I should be thankful for my private space when I complained. Now they were bound by the same trap they'd set for me, financial desperation and pride. The turning point came during a fierce storm last week. The preserved leaks became cascades. Around midnight, I heard them scrambling to place buckets, followed by Dad's muffled curses after striking a beam. I waited until I heard Mom's familiar gasp, the one she made when her perfect world cracked, before climbing the ladder. The scene was as I'd envisioned. They stood amid buckets, water dripping from 3 ceiling spots. Their bed was shoved at an odd angle to dodge the worst leak, their belongings crammed in the only dry corner. "All okay up here?" I asked, mimicking Mom's old calls to me during storms. They turned, their faces etched with exhaustion in the bulb's dim glow. Defeat. Realization. "Easton," Mom began, her voice shaking, we need to talk." "About the leaks?" I leaned against the frame. "They're not so bad. You get used to them." "No," she whispered. "About everything." Dad sank onto the bed, the springs groaning. "We were wrong," he said bluntly. The words lingered, vying with the steady drip into buckets. "Were you?" My tone stayed even. "I thought the loft was perfectly adequate, roomier than a standard room." "Stop!" Mom burst out, tears blending with rainwater on her cheeks. "We know what we did. We never realized what it was like up here." 6 years, I said softly. "I lived here 6 years while Harper got the main bedroom. 6 years of you telling everyone I was troublesome when I mentioned the heat, the cold, the leaks." "We can't undo the past," Dad said, his voice gruff. "But this? This showed us what we put you through. We were wrong, son. We're sorry." I studied them. Mom, her polished look now frayed, her fine clothes swapped for practical ones suited to the loft's conditions. Dad, his commanding presence diminished by the constant need to stoop. "Sorry doesn't erase things," I said at last. "But it's a beginning." I pulled a set of keys from my pocket. "The guest house out back. It's been ready for a month. 1 bedroom, private bath, working AC, no leaks." Their faces showed confusion, then understanding. You had a place for us?" Mom asked. "I needed you to understand first." I tossed the keys to Dad. "Move in tomorrow, but this is temporary just until you're back on your feet, and this time, I mean it." I turned to go, then paused. "The contractors are coming next week to fix the leaks and remodel the loft. I'm making it a proper space, because no one should live like this, not a child, not their parents." As I descended, I heard Mom's sobs, not her usual manipulative ones. They were the sound of someone grasping the gravity of their choices. The next morning, Dad was already moving their things to the guest house. He worked quietly, nodding as I left for work. That evening, Harper's car was in the driveway. She waited in my kitchen, 2 coffee mugs on the counter. "You had the guest house ready all along," she said, not a question. "Yes." "You wanted them to feel what you went through." "Yes." She stirred her coffee, silent for a moment. "I never fully grasped how bad it was up there. I was just a kid, enjoying my nice room, not thinking about what it cost you." I nodded, sipping my coffee. Through the window, I saw Mom and Dad settling into the guest house, their shapes moving behind the curtains. They looked smaller but not defeated. Just awake.